Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures that Outperform. If you joined us over the last few weeks, we were covering PwC's 2024 Global CEO Survey findings. Super interesting report. You should go look at that if you haven't. We said we were going to follow up this week with a look at Josh Bersin's 2024 Global HR predictions. And so I think that is a really good study, and it complements the PwC one, even mentions the PwC one. So without further ado, I think we should just get into it here, Tara.
Let's get into it.
Okay. So I'm going to go in and I'll share that report quickly, and we'll take a look at this. Okay, we got it. So here's the report. You can go right to this URL here. He also has a downloadable set of his predictions if you want to go to the site. If you don't know Josh Bersin, he's probably the most followed person in the HR community. He makes predictions every year. These are his 2024 predictions. And interestingly, it is the global search for productivity. And he's talked about productivity in the past. This is the first time he's ever said, hey, this is the year. It's the global search for productivity. And it really does matter because the workforce has changed. As we see here in this first thing, workers under tremendous stress, 2019, employees who feel risk of burnout, 63%, 2023, 81%. Now, for those of you who study kind of, the human factors of productivity, stress is really debilitating in terms of productivity. It affects your ability to cognitively focus. It creates the fog of work. And people who have too much cortisol are just stressed out. It stays in their body. It takes hours to leave. And so they become stressed out. They become irritable. This is a horrible situation if you understand human productivity and how it works, especially when people have to collaborate together.
Yeah. What's really interesting about this new finding that in 2023, there would be 81% of people who feel this risk of burnout is right there in the middle of this study was the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so you've had those years where people were laid off, where they, were put on furlough. I was put on furlough for my job for a period of time. People were in this state of not really knowing whether or not they would have job security.
Total uncertainty.
No fault of their own, nothing that nobody did, it wasn't because of poor performance. If it's poor performance, then you kind of feel like, okay, I did it to myself. But in this state where you don't really know, what's going on, you don't know what's going to happen next. Companies have been in this place where they really have used employees like resources that they would consume the resource when things are busy, when there's lots of work to be done, but then just kind of discard people or lay people off when things slow down. And there was really no sense of loyalty to the employee. It was mostly about getting the work done at the company. And so it's very interesting that now 81% of people are in this place where they feel like I could be at risk of burnout because you've had all this time where companies were just laying people off. They're letting people go because they don't have enough work for people to do. And it's a different mentality. And I love the statement he makes about in 2024, we have to hoard our talent.
I was just going there. I think you are just the perfect straight person here because that was the next topic and perfect, right?
Yeah. It's just like the perfect way to say it. You've got to hoard your talent. You cannot see people as, people that you can just lay off at whim. You really do have to focus on hoarding your talent. And then we talked about this many times before.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take the people that have that deep institutional knowledge and redevelop them and redeploy them in different roles. This is the time to do that. You should be building the team of the future right now by investing in the people that you have and not thinking that you can just go out and hire all the roles that you're going to need for the new way of working that we're living in. It's just, you're not going to be able to go do that. You're going to have to.
That model of humans are just interchangeable parts is over. It was over 20 years ago. It just took so long for companies to wake up. I've given many talks on the fact that, we have a set of management practices that are really just a legacy solution at this point in time because they come out of the industrial era. And in this report, he talks about companies would hire up as the factories needed more help, and then they would lay off as the economy softened. That doesn't work, because we've done shows on time to competency and talked about the cost of turnover and other things. Jobs are complicated. Relationships are complicated. Humans are an asset. Assets must be grown. There are certain roles that are expenses. Companies are going to have to understand what roles are expenses, what roles are assets, where they're going to invest. And they've got to take that model and that understanding. And they have to grow their own, because it costs so much to actually grow really good talent. You're going to hire, if you want to hire a bunch of stars, you're going to make a lot of misses along the way. You've got to hang on to them. And, shame on these companies that labored under this industrial era mentality for the last, 50 years, when in fact it's been changing the entire way. Another thing he mentions here is that every company is a digital company now. So years ago, we used to say every company is becoming an IT company. I think this is a better way to say it. It's a digital company, but it's a democratization of IT. We've got everything in the cloud. You've got low code, no code solutions. Everybody's going to have to use and apply technology in the jobs they do, period. And so, if you want to understand how to build a really good IT culture, you should get this book, Transforming IT Culture. Came out in 2013. Absolutely timely. Everything in there is correct. Everything was predicted. This is what was inevitably going to happen. Inevitably.
Yeah. You've got to remember, times have changed. The workforce, the age of the workforce has changed. And with each generation, there's a different philosophy about work. And so you're in the generations now that are working. My sons are working. I have twin sons that are 25 or 26. Man, they'll be 27 this year. I'm trying to keep them younger and younger, but they're the youngest of the children that we have. But it's just so amazing to me to hear how empowered they feel to say what they really mean and to ask for what they really want at work. Before, we were just happy to have a job. And so there were certain things that you just didn't say, you didn't ask for it, you didn't push, you were just happy to be there. And we're in a workforce now where there's generations of children that have been raised up to ask for what they want and to say what they feel. And so you've got to respond to that level of employee in your workplace, which I think actually is pretty great.
Me too.
People feel like they can actually have authentic conversation and not just, go along to get along or just do what they think, the bare minimums are to get by. But they're truly looking for fulfilling work. They want to make a difference. And so they're not afraid to say something, to ask for a different work environment, to ask for different benefits. So it's really, I think, to the betterment of all of us that we've got people that are out there that are just not accepting things as the way they've always been, that it just has to be this way. There's a whole generation
so broken.
That
just imagine what the world would be like if every company could be best place to work, a real one, not a fake one. People go after those things so they can market their best place to work. That's not what it is. It's about becoming truly a best place with a high performing culture, leaders who know how to use these human factors of productivity to create an organization that truly outperforms, where people come into work, put down roots, stay, they love it. That's a new type of leadership. That's what we're really talking about here.
Yes.
And he goes on further to talk about, this 4R framework. You can see on the top, slow to implement, fast to implement. Long-term impact of retain is obviously down here in the lower right. You keep the people, you invest in them. And so, we spent some time talking about that. Now look at this productivity journey from railroads to AI. You can see it took 100 years to get a 200% increase from 5,000 to 15,000. And another 80 years to get a 200% increase from 15 to 45. And the next 15 years, 200% increase is 45 to 135. And so the best workers have a very big opportunity ahead of them. But we're going to head back into it's going to be pay for performance. It's going to be all about productivity. And you should be focused on really making sure you're able to produce. You're one of the best workers. Hone your skills. You can see the people in sports who become great. They're always working on their skills. And you're going to have to do that if you want to be one of the people thriving in this new world of work.
Yeah, this reskilling, learning something new, because there are so many new roles, new tasks that can be learned, so many new skill sets that are needed. So taking the time to learn something new now is just going to help you in the long run. And then being able to redesign and re-implement yourself, looking for different employment opportunities within the company. There are going to be so many new positions that have never existed before. Be one of the leads that goes out and goes after those positions. Be one of those people that can go out and figure it out and make, the creative way for others to come. And then employers have really got to focus in on retaining the people that they have. They cannot just continue to go with the same inequities that have occurred across organizations for years.
Yeah.
There's got to be some equities in pay across genders, across cultures, across different backgrounds. You really do have to make it right in this season, because there's going to be so many places for people to go.
Oh,
There's,
absolutely.
it's just no longer going to be acceptable that there are these social inequities going across the company. It's just going to be, your company will get left behind if you're not really focusing your efforts on that.
I agree with you. Look, we know about fairness and equality. We've done shows on those. They're called organizational trust. These are some of the most basic issues that humans use to evaluate things around them.
Yeah.
And when things are unfair and there's a lack of equality, it means they're not going to thrive in your environment and they're going to leave. And you've got to make sure that people feel there's real fairness and real equality. That's how you'll be able to hang on to people and grow them, because once you reskill people, which is costly, you're going to want to retain them and you got to hang on to them. No doubt about it.
That we did a really funny episode on fairness and equality with the I'm going to mess up the name, the Chaputin monkeys.
Yeah, the capuchin monkeys. Yes.
Yes, go find that episode. It is hilarious. It is a great way, a great illustration to show how important fairness and equality is to people. There's these monkeys in this experiment, and by no means are we comparing people to monkeys. Let's just address that elephant in the room right away.
Yeah, but they are
But
social animals like humans, and I
right,
think
but
that's what matters here.
it just really shows how important it is. And so you get a good laugh out of it, but it's a really good show. It really talks
That's
through
funny.
the
Yeah, go to
importance.
our YouTube channel if you want. It's easy to find stuff there. You could certainly go look on LinkedIn on the People Productive page, but I think YouTube's probably got a better search for finding it. You can go there, go to the
Yeah,
People
yeah,
Productive channel, and you can easily find it. Tara, we talked about this last week, the reinvention imperative, where companies felt if they're not able to become more productive and solve this productivity conundrum, that, they're not going to be around in 10 years. And, you look at this, right? 10 years or less, we're going to last 45%. We covered that last week. This is right out of the PwC report. So what it all means is productivity is it. It's not about engagement. Engaged workers are productive, but there's so much more to productivity, right? It's using that engagement to drive higher levels of productivity. And there's all the human enablement factors. There's so much goes into this that's got to become HR's focus. That's exactly what he says.
10 years is really not a long time when you think about it.
Nothing.
It kind of feels like it in this time when things are changing so rapidly. But if you envision how rapidly things are changing and how different we'll be in 10 years, it's really not that far away.
Yeah, Y2K is 24 years ago. I mean, that's 2.5 times almost 10 years. That's how fast it goes.
Yeah.
And this whole notion of reinvention, companies are in this mode of continuous reinvention. They have to be. The technology cycles have sped up. It used to be new technology come along. You had more time to apply it and figure it out. You've got to have your toe in the water right away. You've got to be starting to understand how to use and apply these new technologies in your company. What do they mean competitively? The people in early get competitive advantage. And if you're not in early, it becomes a competitive necessity. And now you're late and you're going to have a hell of a time catching up because the best resources are already gone. They're trained. They don't want to start over in some place that's behind the times.
Yeah.
And so just think about this. PwC estimates
too. It's stressful. That kind of goes back to where we started the show, talking about people being stressed at work.
Yeah.
It's stressful to be in a place, in an environment where, people just really don't get it. And so they're not focusing on building talent. They're not focusing on reinventing themselves and making the workplace the best workplace it can be. They're still stuck in this philosophy of people should be happy to have a job. And it's just, you're really going to be left behind. We say this every show. We've been saying
Oh,
this, but
forever.
it's just true. If you think about companies that, 10, 20 years ago, they existed and they no longer do today, I would be willing to bet money that some of it has to do with how they treated their people.
I'm with you. I think a lot of it has to do with that. I mean, I'm still amazed some companies who treat people awfully are around, but I think their day is coming too.
Yeah.
And so think about this, right? The lack of productivity and inefficiency creates a $10 trillion tax on GDP. This is right out of that PwC report. That's a huge amount of money. And so the lack of productivity is what's holding your company back from its transformation. You've got to do it. And so what does this mean for HR? It means HR is going to have to become experts on how to drive a productive organization. And they're going to have to help the company make it a priority, drop these worthless engagement assessments that have never driven productivity in your company, start really modernizing HR, use tools like People Productive, where we look at workforce productivity. We give you a complete solution to drive higher levels of workforce productivity, all measurable. But you're going to have to change to a dynamic job and org structure, no question. We
No.
did a great series on org design. You can go back to that. It was in January. We covered different parts of org design and how to create an effective org design. And so, creating federated organizational models that break down walls. I believe that's where the future is for all of this.
Yes. And don't be afraid to change. So if you create an organization, you're working in this org structure for a few months and you realize it's not working. Don't just keep going along just because that's what you agreed to do for this year.
Yeah.
Make the change, make the shift, be an agile organization that can do that, because it's going to make such a huge difference in your employees and how they feel about what they're doing. They're going to know that, oh, wait a minute, my job really is important, because when things are not working well, they actually make changes. They don't just tell us to deal with it, but they actually make changes. So
Yeah.
the fact that the organization is willing, our leadership is willing to make changes and make things better, then that lets the employees know, I really do matter. The work I'm doing here matters. It's important.
It's so important that level of recognition, and they've done so many great studies on the importance of this. But, helping people make progress every day. If you've never read it, The Progress Principle by Teresa Mabile. I think there's a book on that as well, certainly a great HBR article. But it's that recognition from the CEOs and others that come down, meet with the people, get on these Zoom meetings and thank them for what they're achieving along the way, not at the end, to
Yeah.
keep them motivated. And so it's a different way of motivating people. And
And it has to be authentic. It has
yeah,
to be genuine. It's not one of those things where you can just fake it and just, put up the person's name or say, yes, they did a great job, but you don't sincerely mean it. People can tell when you really mean it.
they know.
They know.
And so here, Josh Bersin, the most followed HR person, certainly over 1 million people following him directly, but indirectly, meaning they get the materials, reports, they review them, maybe haven't subscribed, millions. And so he says, let me remind you of a big idea. Productivity is why HR departments exist. That's it. That's what they have to drive. And so we're in the new world. We've crossed the chasm. That's it. You should definitely get this. HR predictions for 2024. You can go right here to this URL. I think this page is hidden now. I don't think it comes up when you go in. So, HR predictions for 2024 global search for productivity. You can come in, find that directly. I'm on his site now. It's out there. But this is important. These are sea changes that are happening. And Terry and I are thinking about, bringing back our series on the human factors of productivity, because this is such an important topic. And we can get in and update some of the information we've shared with you in the past. There's a lot of data, there's new reports coming all the time. You're going to have to master the human factors of productivity. Every leadership team is going to have to be fully enabled to drive productivity, or you're not going to be around in 10 years. That's what a lot of CEOs feel. That's 4,702 CEOs. That's not me talking. And so, nothing matters more. So next week, we'll begin talking about different human factors of productivity and what you should be doing now, not just for your personal productivity, but for the organization. What you should be doing as a leader? What should you be doing as an individual contributor? This is a big time. We're in a sea change, and it's going to be all about building the most productive workforce possible over the next few years. That's how you win. And it's human productivity. AI can enhance human productivity, but the real things that humans have to do to create winning companies are going to be done by humans. And that means they've got to be productive. They got to be collaborative. You've got to build those skills. God, we've spent so much time talking about humans as assets and really keeping your people and building talent. Looks like maybe finally that's going to happen, Tara. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. This is an exciting time.
It
This
is.
is a time to reinvent yourself, to learn something new, to try out different roles. This is a great time to experiment. There's lots of training information available to you.
Huge.
YouTube, which I never believed in YouTube. I wish I had invested years ago. I never thought it would be what it is today, but I am just learning things all the time from YouTube University. So take advantage of the technology, the information that's available to you, and be a sponge and just absorb as much as you possibly can, learn as much as you possibly can. It's going to make you a more valuable asset to your organization.
Oh, absolutely. And, certainly subscribe to the People Productive channel on YouTube if you haven't. There's just a wealth of information out there. We've done a lot of great series. I think People Unproductive was great. All the different personality types that drain productivity out of an organization. Maybe that's one we should bring back too.
Yeah.
Because now that it's more relevant than ever, but that's a fun one.
Yeah.
You can always visit us at peopleproductive.com. You can go there. If you have a question, you can always reach out to Terry and I at coach@peopleproductive.com. We're here to answer your questions. And remember, we broadcast every Wednesday, 3:00 Eastern time. Always a really interesting show. Certainly should be on your radar since we've been talking about productivity for years, all the factors that drive them. Now it is front and center in every company and soon to be one of the top strategic things that companies have to get done. And it's exciting to see it finally erupting to the surface,
Yes.
All right. Well, listen, we're here every Wednesday, 3:00. Hope you could join us next week. Certainly look at all the past episodes on any one of our sites on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us on, obviously, YouTube. Very well organized there. But thanks for coming.
Yes. Bye for now.